Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of this week. And this week, guys, it is finally happening. Neptune officially moves into Aries on Monday. This transit will last until 2039. And boy, is it going to feel good to just get Neptune out of that 29 degree of Pisces slot. Yeah, Neptune in Aries is going to post its own kind of unique challenges, us having to face the reality of belief and renewal and rebirth in a very Aries aggressive way. Also remembering that as Mars makes its transit now, it is tied to this. So wherever Mars is going to be coloring our Neptune experience. Um, so yeah, it's a big moment. If you have 0 degree Aries placements or cardinal placements, fire placements, this is definitely something that will be felt. Just a reminder, we had this transit last year for a minute, but this is the kind of official, we're in it for the long haul event. So buckle up. Just remember that Neptune, while deeply creative and rich and spiritual, also can cause a lack of visibility and a bit of delusion, an ability to kind of tangibly hold on to stuff. As someone who does fertility work, however, I do think it is going to make some Aries things a little more accessible for some people. If you have inflammation, if you struggle with um, soreness or other such things, you might in this transit be able to find some kind of solution. Um, it can also mean that Neptunian things kind of get the rougher edge. They get the Aries treatment. We're going to be challenged in our beliefs. We are going to have to see things in a very raw, natural way. It also feels like we're going to be kind of taking things down to their essentials, which, because Aries is kind of that initiation of something. So yeah, spirituality is going to be challenged. Just remember that Saturn will be joining it. We will have that conjunction. Um, and I can't remember. It's sometime in February. I can check. I have my notes right here. I'll just flip through them. Where are you? Yeah, the 21st. So 21st of February, we get that Saturn Neptune conjunction. I believe Saturn moves on the 7th of February into Aries. That whole thing is going to change the vibe a bit. We are going to kind of having some clashing stuff. Our restrictions when it comes to our capacity to dream and create are going to be brought up because of Saturn's um, influence. Like I said, we had a bit of a taste of this last summer, but now we're in it, guys. It's time. I am excited. I do think it's going to really shift things in the spiritual community. It is going to bring us some challenges for um, any kind of reader. Astrology is going to be kind of at the forefront. I do feel like there's going to be, um, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a witch hunt, but I do feel like we might see a return of some uh, folks trying to legislate spiritual arts and practices. So keep an eye on that. Be loud and proud. The best way to fight stigmatization and to stop oppression happening in any sense is to not comply. So continue practicing your practice, continue doing what you want to do because Saturn and Aries is with that Neptunian conjunction is going to bring up some unique challenges for our spiritual communities. And I think it's a good time. We have some spaces that could definitely use some clarity, maybe some, I don't normally use the phrase tough love, but I think it's appropriate here. A little tough love, holding people accountable. Um, Also, people really needing to get in touch and in contact with their own intuition, in order to make the right choices when it comes to what spiritual practitioners they work with, the people that they listen to, the resources that they are drawing from. It's just an opportunity to become even more of an advocate and a firebrand for your own spirituality and your own spiritual journey. Um, I don't usually do spell work for other people unless it's like a longer, bigger spell. I personally encourage, I give advice as to what spell work you should do, and I will guide people through that. But this is an opportunity in Aries to take ownership of your own path and your own spirituality. I'm not saying don't, hire spiritual practitioners for this work, but maybe take some ownership around the kind of more mundane practices, around the more kind of long-term simple desires that you have to kind of work at. Obviously, if you need someone to like bust open a door, go hire someone. But I really encourage you with this Neptune and Aries to really kind of come back to your nativity and come back to your youthfulness and your connection to yourself, and really get playful with your spirituality, get playful with your practice, get playful with your witchcraft. It's not, it is serious, but it's not serious in the sense of like, oh no, if I make a mistake, you learn a lesson, you move on. And you get really good at protection magic, which protection magic is going to be a really big thing in Aries. So is cleansing. So start start building. This is me being very Virgo moon, Virgo rising. Start building those mundane practices within this moment. It'll really help you deal with kind of the intensity of Neptune and Aries. Anyways, we have another really intense astrological moment. Mars conjunct Pluto on Tuesday. I want to just be clear, in personal astrology, a lot of really difficult aspects can be beautiful moments for self understanding. This last week, with all of the Pluto conjunctions, with the exception of this one, definitely I was tracking every single conjunction just by being like, oh, I'm upset about this, I'm upset about that. That this is a deep dive into this part of my psyche. I haven't let go of this. Um, can be really wonderful moments for us to transform. But I will say, Mars aspecting things like Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, even, can really have serious consequences when it comes to mundane astrology and things that are happening on the world stage. So this week, with that Neptune ingress, with this Mars Pluto conjunction, just know that things are very volatile. And not that I have to tell anybody that looking at the news, but just know that people are ready to pop off with Mars and Pluto. It is very much the energy of people and systems lashing out as they die. It's also a quality of people not really recognizing where their triggers are coming from. Now, if you're a really thoughtful person, and you have the courage to sit with your emotions, this is also a time to recognize what the root of a trigger is. And here's the deal, that trigger can be absolutely legitimate and valid, but at least you know where it's coming from, and you're not just kind of flailing and maybe accidentally sideswiping an innocent loved one if they're not the one causing the problem. But yeah, it is a volatile one. It is also going to bring with it, I do think, a sense of hopelessness, especially as we move towards it. But as we separate, I think there might be a very lovely kind of like, if this is what I have to deal with, then this is what I'm going to do. If this Pluto topic or subject, the way the world is, the darkness that we see every day in our society, the ways in which marginalized groups are oppressed, and the multiple, mass genocides around the world, as it separates over the next few days. So, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, let yourself feel everything Tuesday. But as it separates, ask yourself what you can do and how you can move, all things considered. As with this knowledge, with this crushing weight of probably being like, wow, this feels like so much, being like, what are the kind of bite-sized communal things that I can do to create change, to shift the dynamic in my little corner of the world, rather than fully giving into the pain of Pluto Mars conjunctions. It's just a lot. Mars is violence and cutting and knives. It's also, I will say this, it's also big time horny energy. Might be a great antidote to despair, to have some spicy time with yourself, with someone else. So keep that in mind if you're a consenting adult. Um, so yeah, Tuesday, very spicy, very intense. I do love that we get a Mercury conjunction 2 days later with Venus, because we have all of this. One second, my dog. Reggie, hey. No, good boy. That's Reggie. He's feeling very guard dog-esque, especially when I get online and have something to do. Reg, be sweet. He wants to prove that he has guard dog qualities. No, Reg. Anyways, so moving on, now that Reggie has made himself known, moving on, we do have this beautiful Mercury-Mars conjunction. And I love that that happens after the Mars-Pluto conjunction, because then we get something to do. There's activity, there's action, there's an ability to connect with others. There is, and it's going to be an easier time to connect with people. Also, we are finally kind of slowly shifting away from the sun. We're not quite out of the sun's orb yet, which kind of makes things fuzzy. I described it to someone recently as like having all the personal planets underneath the sun's influence, but not in Kazemi, has really just felt like frustrated crying, and you just don't know why. Also, have you been frustrated crying and you're like, I don't know why I'm doing this? It's because everything is so close to the very blinding rays of the sun. But we get this Mercury Venus conjunction. There's communication, there's care, there is connection between ourselves and our community. It also is going to show us in which the ways in which people can't show up for us. All of these aspects have pros and cons, but then it allows us to release expectations and to set boundaries where we need to set boundaries rather than waiting for something to happen, waiting for people to show up, being like, okay, well, I know how this person is going to show up. And then you can decide, am I going to have a discussion with them? Is it worth it? Do I have the energy right now? But yeah, it's also, I think, a really beautiful time to tell someone that you care about them. I love Venus Mercury conjunctions for just being like, hey, love you. In a Saturn ruled sign, it can very much be the more practical ways of showing someone that you love them, checking in, asking if they've eaten, sending them a little bit of cash for treats or snacks. If you're a parent, this is a really great time to kind of just check in on your child's habits and, what, they're doing, and if they're kind of keeping up on this, the phases in life they should be in when it comes to hygiene and taking care of themselves and making sure that they have, if you can, the appropriate clothes for them. It's coming from someone raised in a neglectful household. So, and even good parents can sometimes kind of not realize that their child has gone through a growth spurt and might need, some new stuff. So just taking inventory around the people that we are, caring of. This also applies to pets. Make sure that you've scheduled your vet visits, that your pet has, is up to date on everything if possible. And if you, are in a position where you can't afford that, then you know, maybe having a discussion with your vet or finding a vet that can allow you to focus on what's important. I had a vet visit with my dog. Things aren't great financially. I went in and said, hey, we need to focus on essentials. I'm in the Midwest now, thank God, in this sense, because in New York they don't always do this. My old vet would, but and they gave me really practical advice, something that we can tackle right now. Which, while it is going to cost money, it is not the same as a surgery. So things like that, just checking in on people. If you have elderly parents or neighbors, just taking that kind of practical Saturnian energy and going in and being like, hey, we got everything covered, we're doing okay. And if you can't help someone, connecting them, very mercurial, connecting them to someone who can, putting them in touch with mutual aid networks, putting them in touch with food pantries, and if it's a really serious situation, social workers or someone who knows how to handle these things. um, but yeah, it's a really beautiful time, I think, in the midst of all of this kind of craziness, because with the adjacency to Pluto, that Mercury Cazimi was like, so here's why you're sad. Here's why you feel hopeless. Here's what you're missing about the parts of your life that no longer exist. Here's the way things change has shifted you, and you will never be the same. But having this little nice Mercury Venus conjunction is about, reconnecting and finding care and finding connection and um, love and just a really nice sense of like support. So if you know someone who could use support or who tends to be isolated, or your disabled friends, check in on them with this Mercury conjunct Venus. It's a really nice way to kind of, you know, show you care, show that you value and understand and love them. It never hurts to do these things. And then kind of our final moment this week, we really only have a couple, but very major situations going on, is the full moon in Leo on Sunday. And this is our final non-eclipse full moon. I will say that because the next eclipse is still on the Aquarius Leo axis, this full moon is going to feel a bit more pressured. Also, we're still within 10 degrees of Pluto. And that's the orb a lot of people give Pluto. So there's a very hefty Pluto vibe going on. So just keep that in mind. It's also a sun full moon. It's ruled by the sun in the winter. And so there is this kind of craving around this energy for us to be like, ugh, if only spring was here and the sun and the warmth, especially if you live in a colder climate. I will be doing a longer video on the full moon, but just know that it'll be really impactful. And I would encourage you, it is in the afternoon on Sunday. So if you can participate in the full moon there's more access on the weekend. I will also say this is my rule for new and full moons. Um, if you want to work with a full moon, try to work with it before the full moon, because as the full moon goes to the new moon, the energy weakens. That's just how it works. And then if you're going to work with a new moon, either work on the day of the new moon or after the new moon, because then you were in the building energetic phase. It's just a fun little tip for working with new and full moon energy. There's some interesting stuff with here as well. I don't always pull in the asteroid goddesses, but in this one we do have Ceres and Vesta rolling up, so that'll be interesting. And like I said, I'll go into that in the other video. But just know that this week is intense. That while there's not as many aspects as we have been dealing with, we are dealing with some really major astrology this week and some really intense astrology, especially on Tuesday and the days around. So like Monday and Sunday, which by the time this, yeah, by the time it's posted, you'll see this. Sunday, as I post these on Saturday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and even into Friday. Just know that that Mars Pluto conjunction energy is heavy. It is a lot. People will be acting out. People will be more on edge, especially especially like where I live in Minneapolis. Things are already on edge. This is going to be an uptick of that. So just know to, keep yourself safe, to just be aware of the risks that you are taking when you are doing things out and about. I will never discourage someone from participating in resistance. Just know what you are signing up for. Um, 1 second, I got a notification on those days. Just know that you are dealing with really intense energy and you have to be very locked in. And the one thing, move quickly, but be more observational when stuff happens. Um, unless you're Mars ruled and then tear it up. Anyways, my loves, this week we don't have too much. Next week is also kind of a more chill vibe. We have a lot of Uranian energy next week, which ironically I said chill, but compared to what we've been experiencing, Uranus stationing direct isn't that crazy. And in fact, I would enjoy it. I'm kind of tired of it being at the later degrees of Taurus opposing my Pluto. Would be nice if it would officially get into Gemini, which will happen in April. Anyways, my loves, if you have any questions, you can always ask them below. You can follow me on other places. I'm under this name everywhere else, The Keen Witch. Please like and subscribe, and I really wish you a good week. Once again, just a reminder, lots of energy. Take care of yourself. Rest when you need to rest. And know that we're slowly getting to a turning point as we head towards these eclipses. And this week we hit that first full moon, which is going to be kind of unlocking the portal into eclipse season. So buckle up. And like I tell most people, for any major intense astrological moment, just start clearing the deck. Anything you don't need, get rid of. Anything that you've been holding on to and know that you need to release control of, start to peel your little fingies off of. Because the eclipses are going, especially fixed sign eclipses, they're going to rip everything up. And not in a bad way. They're taking away everything that no longer serves you, that down the road is just going to blow up anyways. So grieve what you need to grieve, release what you can release, and enjoy the ride because we really don't have much of an option. And, I encourage you to kind of stay on top of the astrology, especially last week. I found as an astrologer, I was just really glad that I'm very aware of what's going on. It really helped me navigate some difficult feelings. So I encourage you to stay on top of these things yourself, keep track of where these things are happening in your own chart, and I will see you all later.